Hello everyone and welcome back to Lucky Loaders 15, where I'll be giving you 4 of my best bets for tomorrow's racing. Now before we get stuck into those, we'll just have a quick recap on how today's tips ran. It all started off for us in the 320 at Pontefract with a winner. We had a winning nap in the form of Oleg for Megan and Paul Nichols. Just got up in the nick of time, but was always staying on really strongly. At one point he was boxed in by Megan Nichols against the rail, and I was a bit worried if he was going to get out, but luckily he did. And then when he did get out, he stayed on strongly and won pretty snugly, I thought, in the end. And there was a nice drift as well, out from 3-1 to 7-2. So if you're able to get to 7-2, that was a very good result there. We then went to Yarmouth with our next 2 selections. In the 5-10, Opine for Michael Bell was very well supported, 12-1 into 9-2 in places it was. And to be fair, I thought it ran all right. I was a bit gutted, to be honest with you, that it didn't get the place. Was very keen early on and did struggle going around the first bend. Had a Y trip. He was very excited, I think. He was about getting back to racing again. But I think if they can pitch him in another race like that, he can definitely do some damage off his current handicap market. It'd be interesting to see what the handicapper will do with him. I think he's one to still keep on side because he did show a lot of potential. He was travelling very comfortably, I thought, down the home straight. And at one point, I thought he was at least going to finish in the first 2. He probably just bumped into a well-handicapped horse in the shape of Mark Prescott's, and they're stable now. They'll probably start getting their winning streak like they always do every year. But Opine, not one to give up on, and be interesting to see where he goes next. In the 6-10 at Yarmouth, we put up a horse called Friday Fizz for Luke Morris and Mark Loughnane. Bit disappointed with that one because I never felt like we got a run for our money at all. Was a slow away and was out the back, and I thought really those tactics weren't always going to suit that horse going into this race. I think they should have used her stamina for 7 furlongs, should have got her handy against the rail from the get-go and just seen what she'd done, because when she'd actually run over 7 furlongs before from the front, that's when her career best performances on the figures had come in. So I thought it was a bit of a bizarre ride, to be honest with you. Not one I'm willing to side with again, but nonetheless, probably will still come out and win in the future. But at the moment, that's not going to be on my tracker. But Opine is definitely a horse to keep on side next time. We still have one more selection to go in my form of the next best, which runs at Kempton tonight in the last race there. Anno Lucis. Hopefully that does well. Bit alarming that there has been a drift throughout the day, but sometimes you can still win with a nice drift. I remember a few months ago I put a horse on here at 9-4, ended up winning at 12-1. So these things do happen, but yeah, hopefully we can get a run for our money anyway. And we've got 4 places on the dirty each way. I think they're 7-1. 8-1 in places still, so if it can make the frame with the 4 places there, we'll come out with a profitable day. But moving on to tomorrow's selections, we'll get straight into the thick of things in the 250 at Beverley with a horse here called Reigns of Castamere. Now this horse is currently 4-1 with bookmakers at the moment and is going to be my next best. Just going to do the win only bet, and it's trained by Mick Shannon, and Ben Curtis is booked for the ride. Now Mick Shannon's actually got a good record at Beverley. He's got a 19% strike rate. He's 5 from 26. But when he hasn't won, he's had 7 seconds. So he's actually 12 from 26 in the first 2 at Beverley, which is really interesting. So I think that definitely is a positive for this horse appearing at Beverley tomorrow. They must fancy its chances. And Ben Curtis has been riding really well at the moment, been having quite a few winners. Now, last time we saw this horse, it made all from the front at Kempton to win an all-weather seller. Now, that's the kind of race Mick Shannon does very well in normally. But in a handicap tomorrow off a mark of 65, I still think that looks quite workable. And the good thing about this horse tomorrow is it's got not a bad draw on stall 5. And if it can get up from the pace early on, make the run in, that form of tactics is often very good at Beverley. You don't get too many horses coming from off the pace. It's normally a front runner's track. It's very sharp track, and you want to be handy. So at 4-1 tomorrow, with all the right connections, and even though there are 1 or 2 horses like the Mark Johnston horse that maybe could be anything. I just thought that actually a lot of these horses hadn't achieved much in their 2-year-old careers, and maybe this horse still might be going okay. And Mick Shannon's team as well, they've been in okay form too. They've been having a couple of winners here and there. Some of their horses are running well, and even though he's quite hard trained to gauge, I think he's got a good chance tomorrow at 4-1. So he's going to be my next best. We then go to Newbury for the 340 with my nap with a horse called Choral Work. Now this horse is currently 7-2 with bookmakers at the moment, trained by William Jarvis, and James Doyle is booked for the ride in the colours of the Cheveley Park stud. Now, there could be a bit of rain around the UK tomorrow, and there could be some rain potentially at Newbury. Either way, I don't think it particularly matters for this horse. She's by Nathaniel. We've only seen her once so far when she finished 7th on her 2-year-old debut at Newmarket. The form of that race has worked out okay. There's been a few winners come out from it, and I think she would have learned a lot that day, and they just took her to the race course just to get a bit of experience. And I think this horse this season will start to come in her own. She's going to be bred for staying trips. That 2-year-old race was over 7 furlongs. She's going up to 1.25 miles tomorrow, and I can see her finishing out the trip strongly. In her maiden race, novice race at Newmarket, she was finishing in 7th place, but she actually wasn't given a hard time by a jockey that day, Kieran Fallon. He was quite easy on her in the last furlong, and she did stay on actually quite strongly. Go back and watch the replay. It was quite eye-catching. One of those sometimes that we don't see from the back of the field, right at the back of the field, I mean, that pass a few horses staying on strongly. So definitely was one for the notebook. And William Haggis's team have been going okay since the resumption of racing. And I know there's a couple of newcomers in here tomorrow, but I just think they might want the run and will learn for the experience. Whereas Choral Work, I should say, has the experience in the bag, and I think she'll come on forward massively. Also as well, if you actually look on her pedigree on the dam side, her granddam, so that's the horse's grandmother as you were, she was previously trained in the Cheveley Park's colours by William Haggis, and she was a Group 3 winner, and she got better with age. She started to come to the fore as a 3-year-old. So I think there's a lot of suggestions here that saying this is going to be Choral Work's year, and I think at 7-2, I think she can break her maiden tag tomorrow, and that's why she's going to be my nap. We then go with our extra tip tomorrow in the 7 o'clock at Yarmouth with a horse called Sparkling Diamond. Now this horse is currently 8-1 with bookmakers, and some firms are paying out 4 places, and I think that looks like an absolute steal. Now this horse is trained by Philip McBride, and Dylan Hogan is booked for the ride, claiming a handy £3. Now he's going to be meeting into Gigi's Boy, I think that's the name of the horse, for Hugo Palmer, who beat him last week at Kempton. But that horse is going to be carrying a penalty. And tomorrow there's a £9 swing at the weights. And I know it says £6, but when you actually add it all up, the people that write the comments haven't done this properly. There's £9 better off because they're going to be employing Dylan Hogan's £3 claim. So that's where the extra allowance will come into play. Now, last time they met at Kempton, our horse Sparkling Diamond had to give £4 to Gigi's Boy. Now, tomorrow, our horse is going to be in receipt of, I think it's £5 or £6, but I've done all the maths anyway. Yeah, this horse is going to be far better off at the weights, and we're staying on really strongly at Kempton, and the winner that day for Hugo Palmer's horse, he just got the first run, and even though this horse hasn't shown much yet on the turf, it's still a horse that's learning its trade, still only 3 years old, and ran really well on his last 6 starts, finished in the first 4, even though they did come on the all-weather, but he's slowly getting the hang of things. And Philip McBride's horses as well, they don't do too bad at Yarmouth, and they can often pop up at big prices. And Dylan Hogan this year, who's based with David Simcock, I think he might be having a go for the Champion Apprentice title. So if he is, he want to be winning races like this. And I just think at 8-1 tomorrow, I think this horse can go really well and is a good each-way bet, especially as well with the 4 places. And I think that represents massive value. I think come post-time tomorrow, be a lot short on the betting. I wouldn't be at all surprised if this horse maybe went off at a price near 4-1, 9-2, because I think it will be the each-way bet in the race. And for me, I think that's a good bit of value. We then go my long shot in the 7:45 at Lingfield on the all-weather with a horse called Cristal Pallas Cat. This horse is currently 14-1 with bookmakers at the moment and is trained by Roger Ingram, and Josephine Gordon is booked for the ride. Now, Josephine Gordon, since her resumption of racing, has been going really well. You might remember, if you listened to some of my work on the podcast, that I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and she's teamed up with a new agent, Adam Brooke, and those two have been going great guns, and he's getting her some good rides at the moment. And he got a good ride for Roger Ingram earlier in the week. They had a 40-1 winner, I think it was, at Chelmsford. So they're obviously got a bit of a plan going here. And this horse is normally best when fresh. Both his career wins have come after long breaks, and obviously he's had a long break tomorrow. He's going to be having his first run since the coronavirus lockdown, and he's off a basement mark of 48, which looks pretty feasible, really. He's actually won off a mark of 62, which was probably a bit of a fluke a couple of years ago, but I think off a mark of 48, that's definitely a fair level of visibility. And he's a horse as well that can make the frame quite a lot. He's got quite a lot of places next to his name, and he's handled the track okay at Lingfield in the past before, and off a nice low weight tomorrow with Josephine riding well. The two combining for a winner the other day, down on a fair handicap mark, and we know we should hopefully get a good run for our money from the fresh angle. I just thought 14-1, that represented quite a lot of value. So for me, that's going to be my long shot tomorrow. There's not 4 places, unfortunately, being paid out. You can do if you obviously want to go on the Betfair exchange, but if you just want to back the standard each way with majority firms, there's no 4 places that I've seen out there. So at 14-1, that's going to be my long shot tomorrow, and I'm going to recommend it as my each way bet. So they're my 4 best bets for tomorrow's race in the UK. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe here to my YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do, where my handle is @LuckyLoaders15. And just before I sign off, we'll just go through all those tips quickly again. In the 250 at Beverley, we go with a horse called Reigns of Castamere. I think that's how you pronounce it. 4-1. That's going to be my next best for Ben Curtis and Mick Shannon. We then go to Newbury in the 340 for my nap with a horse called Choral, currently 7-2 with bookmakers at the moment. And then we go to Yarmouth for the extra tip with Sparkling Diamond, 8-1 each way, 4 places. And then we go to Lingfield for the 745 with Cristal, Pallas, Cats, 14-1. That's my long shot as the each way bet, which was recommended at the end of this video. So that's all I got to say about that. So hopefully we can have some winners tomorrow. Please gamble responsibly, and we'll be seeing you soon.